Hi, I'm here to pick up my son Milo.
There's no Milo here.
Who picked up my son from school?
Streaming only on Peacock.
I'm gonna need the name of everyone that could have a connection.
You don't understand. It was just the 5 of us.
So this was all planned.
What are you gonna do?
I will do whatever it takes to get my son back.
I honestly didn't see this coming. These nice people killing each other.
All Her Fault. A new series streaming now only on Peacock.
Did you know that parents rank teaching financial literacy as the toughest life skill? That's where Greenlight comes in, the debit card and money app made for families. With Greenlight, you can send money quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and track spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn how to earn, save, and spend responsibly, while parents have peace of mind knowing smart money habits are being built. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/Spotify.
Ladies and gentlemen, non-binary listeners, heroes and heroines, crooks and crookians, Howard Rock and Roller. The audio performance you are about to enjoy discusses casinos and gambling. We do not recommend gambling with money you cannot afford to lose or that is needed to pay bills. If you have a gambling problem, contact your problem gambling hotline. If you do not know how to contact your problem gambling hotline, send an email to help@casinocombat.com. We will find that number for you and provide it to you. Our hosts' past performances are not indicative of anyone's future results, including his own. All materials presented here are based on actual facts. Names and dates are changed to protect the innocent and the guilty. Some events, unrelated outcomes may be omitted in the interest of brevity and clarity. It's me, it's TRG, the Rambling Gambler. I've got the Casino Combat ring on, so I can change dates just a little bit to protect the guilty and celebrate the innocent. I just took some blue dice, set them as cross sixes for a come out roll, and did a par toss toward heaven. They landed near me in a hard way set. Maybe an angel blessed them in the air. Let's rock and roll. Welcome to episode 136 of our Casino Combat podcast. As always, recorded live in the glorious Casino Combat studios in parts unknown. Sorry, I've been away for a minute, been a bit under the weather. Glad to be back at it. I have a fairly simple game plan for this episode. I'm going to start with a Questions My Sons Ask segment and cover an interesting question about a blackjack play and stackonomics. After that, I'm going to continue my focus on beginner content and do a Core Koncepts segment to discuss low house advantage wagers. After that, I'll have a results segment to review the results of April 2024 quickly. Finally, we're going to adjourn to the virtual VIP lounge for some sips and a story that illustrates the value of knowing the math of the wagers you are going to make. That's it. Pretty straightforward. Let's get started with Questions My Sons Ask.
What?
My sons ask questions about gambling, listeners ask questions about gambling, squad mates email and ask questions about gambling. Our question today comes from a squad mate that's emailed on a number of occasions, a very smart individual, a gifted card counter, the Count of Endodontry, sent me an email and said, "Hi TRG, just wanted to touch base since it's been a while to say hello, and I always learn something from you every time we chat." Well, that's quite a compliment, actually. He says, the TRG4, in addition to the mini martingale and counting, has been a good experience. A lot of small wins, but small wins add up. Also, it's nice to play at times without the risk of big bets at high true counts and just play totally relaxed. Total disclosure, my comps, room and food, are mainly from MGM and do not risk counting there much, so this has been a great addition to maintain the comps and make a little money. Win-win. He is absolutely right. It is a win-win. I agree with your philosophy on taking insurance, but will say when my largest bet is out, 2.5 units, and the count is very high, I'll take it. It has worked out well, at least I think. I'm going to come back and talk about that one in just a minute. Taking insurance and splitting tens, rarely get those kinds of high counts, usually brings the heat, but I will do it now without breaking a sweat using TRG4. And he adds a chuckle, a ha-ha there. So let me let me back up a step here. I said I'd talk about that. I'll get to his actual question here in a minute. What's going on here, if you're not reading between the lines, if your knowledge set isn't quite getting you through all of this, what he is doing is he is using TRG4, win more, keep more, and counting cards. And he's using the count to change his strategy to lower the house's advantage. And he is using the TRG4 wagering system so they don't see him as a counter. He doesn't do the countery thing. The way a card counter traditionally gets caught, or typically gets caught and backed off, as the phrase goes, is because as the count gets higher and higher, more and more positive, their bets get larger and larger. So the bet moves with the count, and that's the tip-off. That's the tell. That's the thing smart security, smart dealers, smart pit bosses will know. So what the Count of Endodontry is doing is he's not changing his bets based on the count. He is changing his bets using TRG4 in relationship to previous outcomes. And he's playing the hand. He's altering basic strategy only based on the count. This was his idea. Others have come up with it as well. It is a bit of brilliance. It is absolutely a remarkable bit of thinking. So what he's saying here is that while I always say I never take insurance, that's because I don't have the value of the count in front of me. He's saying I have a blackjack, the dealer has an ace, and the count tells me on this larger than normal bet that there are a lot of 10s left. There is a high probability that the dealer also has a 10 and a blackjack. So he's using additional knowledge to tell him when to take insurance. Likewise, he is using it to split 10s, and he is saying that he's able to do these things which would normally be high risk of exposure to a card counter because he doesn't look like a card counter. He just looks like a guy having fun. So here's his question. He says, my question is this. Although not available at most places, in Vegas, the 6-deck game I play offers surrender. With the strategy and deviations, I like to utilize the surrender option and feels like it extends my playtime on the same bankroll to get a win more than on a non-surrender game. I'm getting to the question, I promise. He is right. A, MGM properties have started to give surrender as an option just recently to my observation. It used to be about the only place I found surrender was in Pennsylvania, couple places in Atlantic City. And it did start to pop up our last couple of visits in Vegas at MGM properties, and that was a bit different. And it does extend things out, and it is to the player's advantage to use those and use those well, and your strategy chart will tell you when to surrender. And if you're not familiar, and this is to his question, and we are getting there, the question, the strategy goes like this. If you have bet $10, and suppose you have a hard 16, you have a 10 and a 6, and the dealer has a 10 showing. The correct basic strategy play, if surrender is allowed, is to surrender your hand. And you do that by making a scratching motion horizontally behind your cards. And if you have a $10 wager, the dealer will give you one red chip, $5, and they give the house one red chip. When you surrender, you lose half of what you wagered. And that is where the question comes in. Because our squad mate says, it definitely creates that real-world messy situation you have described at times. I've done both. Put the half bet back in my play stack and count it as a loss, and sometimes in the win stack, even though technically it's not a win. I need to decide on a steadfast rule and not vary, just like the rest of my game. Your thoughts? This is an excellent question. And admittedly, while we are going to do beginner content next, this is advanced content. This is PhD level content. This is using a counting system to gain an additional advantage over the house, camouflage it with TRG4, win more, keep more, and do it at a surrender table where you're going to get half of your bet back when you surrender, which you should for basic strategy. And now the question is, how do we do the stack management? How do we manage the stack? How do we change the abacus when this situation occurs. And even if you're not counting cards, if you're playing in Pennsylvania, if you're playing in Atlantic City, if you're playing at one of these MGM properties in Vegas, if you are playing somewhere where surrender is an option, you want to play surrender correctly. You want to use basic strategy just as you would with any other part of your game. And I am a doctor of stackonomics. It is a key skill that I have mastered and perfected and spent a good bit of time on. How do we arrange the chips to tell us what our next play is and should be? And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here. I think there are a lot of good answers that each person can select from themselves. What are our three choices? We can put it in the play stack, and we can just kind of go from there, right? You lost some money, so treat it as a loss. Make your next bet in the appropriate fashion, and your stack's just going to be weird until either you exit with half a unit more than you would have on the losing side on a negative exit, or your play stack gets back to 10.5 and you pull half a unit over to the win stack. That's one way to do it. Add it to your play stack, treat it as a loss, go forward. The other option would be add it to your win stack even though it isn't a win and count it as a win. That would be awkward. That wouldn't work. You can add it to your win stack and count it as a loss. That keeps your stacks nice and clean. And those are all good choices, and everybody can make those choices for themselves. This is a minute aspect of building the wagering system like Lego, and you can put this set of Lego together any way you want. I don't think there's a wrong answer. For me, surrender doesn't come up that often. When it does, as long as I have a win stack, then what I like to do is I like to treat it as a losing push. And I'm making up a term there, but I like to treat it as a losing push. I like to take half a unit out of my win stack and put it in my play stack and make the same bet again. So what would that look like? Let's use that $10 unit size again. So I wager $10. It's a single unit wager. I'm playing a $10 unit size. I get a 10 and a 6. The dealer has a 10 showing. I surrender. The dealer takes the red chip for the house, gives me the red chip back. And as long as I have red chips in my win stack, as long as I've been winning something, I'm going to take one red chip from that win stack. I'm going to add it to my play stack, and I'm going to once again make the $10 wager. It's a very conservative way to do it. It's a protecting the bankroll move more than a make as much money as possible move. But that's the way I like to handle that. That's the way I like to approach it. It doesn't happen enough for me to give you an opinion on if it's best, because I don't play in Pennsylvania or Atlantic City often enough to have really, really analyzed this. And I think for most of you, unless you're playing on a daily basis, you're probably not going to see enough surrender hands for there to be a right or wrong answer. But the Count of Endodonty is absolutely spot on in his final observation. He is absolutely, and not surprisingly, because he's an expert player, what's his last line? Other than the question, your thoughts. I need to decide on a steadfast rule and not vary, just like the rest of my game. And that's another key takeaway from this. Perhaps the most key takeaway. It's an obscure part of the game, but to master the game of casino gambling, and within it, the game of blackjack, one of the key skills is outside the casino. Before you play, make decisions like this when you see them coming up over and over. Any of your game, regardless of whether it's blackjack or anything else. If you see something coming up over and over, in fact, I'll give you an example of that in a minute. If you see something coming up over and over and over in your process, maybe unique to the casinos you go to, and sometimes you're doing one thing and sometimes you're doing another, make a note of that. Sit down in the calm of your mind outside the casino before you go and make a steadfast rule on how you're going to handle this. if you handle this surrender situation one way and I handle it another, we can grab a root beer and kick around why we do what we do, but there's no right or wrong. Maybe you'll decide you like my way, maybe I'll decide you're like yours, and maybe we'll do it differently, and there's no right or wrong. The wrong is not having a steadfast rule and knowing it before you go in. I told you I'd give you an example, and there are a lot of them. But for example, I got a good one. My local casino has recently changed the gift giveaway for the grocery store cards. It used to just be you came in and they gave you a grocery store card of a certain dollar value. And everybody got different dollar values depending on what their comp level is. Now, recently, they decided that you were going to have a choice, a small amount of free slot play or your gift card. Now, that's an interesting choice, or it could be an interesting choice. When I saw my first one come up that way, the first time they did the promotion, I knew what my steadfast rule was. I was always going to take the gift card, and here's why. If my offer was for a $50 gift card, the free play would be $35. And of course, in that situation, for me, it's easy. You take the gift card. It's a guaranteed $50 that you can spend like money. It is the equivalent of the dreaded $50 bill. I said to Mrs. TRG, why would anyone do that? They would have to be giving me at least $100 in free play for me to even consider it. Because on average, if I spend $100, I'm going to get 50. And sometimes I'm going to get 10. And sometimes I'm going to get 300. But on average, I'm going to get about half. Why in the world would I take roughly 2/3 of the amount of the gift card in free slot play? That just doesn't seem smart. And you could maybe make a case for doing it the other way, and I'm not going to argue with you about it, but my point is, that's always what I do. They've been running this promotion for a long time. Another example, sometimes casinos will give you the gift of $10. And they will allow you to take that $10 as free slot play or a free table bet or $10 to spend on a meal. Sometimes it's just the free slot play or the free bet. Have a hard and fast rule. Have a steadfast rule, as we were reminded, that you decided before you go to the casino, once you know that's a choice you're going to make on a regular basis. A brilliant observation from the C of E at the very end there. I need to decide on a steadfast rule and not vary, just like the rest of my game. So smart, so true. In this case, I call it a losing push. I put half a unit from my win stack back over to my play stack, and I make the same wager again. Thank you for the great question. Always good to hear from you. Always appreciate you checking in. Always amazed at the skill with which you approach the game of blackjack and the game of casino gambling. Next up, we are going to do a core concept segment, and we're going to talk about a much simpler aspect of blackjack.
This episode is brought to you by eBay. Buying parts for your car? You'll know that will it work feeling. But on eBay, buying parts is different. eBay's free returns means if it doesn't fit, or if it isn't what you expected, you just print a label, drop it off, and get your refund fast. No haggling, no stress, and at least 30 days to return any eligible item. Millions of parts, free returns. eBay. Things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
With new, gentler scented Clorox disinfecting wipes, clean finally smells as good as it feels. On everything from lamps to ceiling fans. Even on your kid's toy shark. Oh, ouch. Clorox disinfecting wipes. Now available in crisp lemon. Find it on Amazon. Clorox. Clean feels good.
The core concepts spelled with a K, of course, of casino combat are the foundational ideas, the basic thoughts, the points of knowledge that I think are most significant to becoming a good casino gambler. The fundamental ideas we need to know if we are going to win the game of casino gambling and live a casino lifestyle. And I want to talk about one of those today. I want to continue to try to do some of these beginner ideas, often, and they need to be said too, but I've often done segments that are fairly complex and assume a broad knowledge and skill set, assume an advanced set of skills and abilities. And so I do want to try to do more beginner things, and I've been trying to mix those in. I've laid out the core concepts many times. I've done a YouTube playlist called Boot Camp, camp spelled with a K, that talks about each of them in detail. If you are not familiar with the core concepts, if you cannot write them down, if you cannot explain them to an uncle over a beer at a barbecue when he asks you what this crazy casino gambling thing you're doing is and why you're doing it, I encourage you to listen to that. I encourage you to go through that. I encourage you to find the blog post on the website, casinocombat.com, combat spelled with a K, of course, and take advantage of that. I'll go over all of them again at some point in the future. I think Same Bet was right, and there's value in that. But for today, we're just going to focus on one of the core concepts, making wagers with the smallest possible house advantage. Admittedly, we want also wagers that give tier credit. So that kind of eliminates sports betting and poker as our primary tools, because those don't generate much in terms of tier credits. Video poker played well could also fit there, but boy, tier credits there are hard to get. You're going to have to be playing at a pretty high level to really do casino combat with video poker if you have the right machines available. But that's the idea. That's the concept that we're going to focus on today. Making wagers with the smallest possible house advantage. And so let's run through those if you're not aware. If you use the correct basic strategy for the rules in place, and if you play a blackjack table where blackjack pays 3-2, you have the lowest possible house advantage that you can achieve on a wager that provides tier points. Admittedly, there are some craps wagers after a point is established where you can have a no house advantage wager, but any well-run house will not give you tier credits for those wagers. So the lowest possible house advantage wager we can make is blackjack, followed by player bank baccarat, followed by pass don't pass craps, followed by red, black, even, odd, top half, bottom half on a roulette table. Those are in a normal casino, in a average casino, and I don't mean average as a pejorative, in a casino that you are most likely to find most places in the United States, those are the lowest house advantage wagers. And what I'm going to try to do today is make the case for making blackjack your primary game. And the obvious reason for that, the obvious reason on this topic of low house advantage wagers, is that it's the lowest house advantage wager available. It's the most common game available. It's the lowest house advantage wager available. It's usually available in abundance in most casinos. Only after the number of slot machines they have is generally the number of blackjack tables they will have. And so it's a very easy choice for that reason. That is, after all, the reason I made blackjack my primary game, among some other reasons. Now, the reasons you wouldn't do that would be you have to learn basic strategy, or you have to have the right printed out materials with the basic strategy, and you have to take those with you to the table. And if you wanted to say, okay, well, Bach TRG, I'm going to play Bach instead. I'm just going to bet player on Bach. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do TRG2, always be grinding, or TRG4, win more, keep more. If you're not familiar with those, episode 62, 63 will teach you always be grinding, TRG2. TRG4, win more, keep more, is taught in episode 97. There are also videos of these on the YouTube channel in the very creatively named TRG Wagering Strategies playlist, where you can see me play them out on camera. There are flowcharts for these on the website in the Fred section that you can download and see all the decisions that you need to make. But if you're saying to me, hey, TRG, I got to learn basic strategy and I'm just going to, craps is too slow if I just bet the don't pass, and people give me a hard time, so I don't want to do that. And red, black, the house advantage is way higher. It's almost 10 times the house advantage of blackjack. So I'm going to give up just a little house advantage. I'm going to give up just a little bit, and I'm just gonna play Bach. Okay, I get that. Baccarat is easy. Baccarat is slow. You're just going to sit there and manage your bets. There's no other decisions to make. There's nothing else to do. But I would argue and then encourage, I would argue that blackjack is superior and encourage you to consider putting in the effort, printing the materials, dealing with a little more complex environment and some decision making compared to baccarat for one reason that I think is very, very significant. Blackjack is one of the few, if any, games, maybe some of the carny games might fall into this category, but it's one of the few games where you can look at the first part of the game. You can look at your first two cards and the house's first card, and then you can put more money into the game. You can wager more, and you can do that in situations where if you're playing basic strategy, you have a mathematical advantage over the house. If you are doubling your 10, you have an 8 and a 2, the house has a 5, and you are doubling, the math says you have an advantage over the house on that hand. That's why you're doing it. Ace 10, there are 3 10 value cards, and an ace. All those give you 20 or 21. Strong hands. There's 9s, 4 of those per deck. And the 9s give you a 19, higher than the average winning hand of 18.5. 8 is a good hand at 18. 7 is a hand at 17. Obviously, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are not your first choice, but still, the odds are that the house is going to bust their hand and you're going to get paid. Okay, that makes the game more interesting, but why am I saying that this gives you a reason to choose blackjack wagers over the other wagers available? And the reason is this. This allows you to get to a positive exit more quickly if you're in a good place in your game, and it allows you to catch up if you're at a bad place in your game. If your play stack is at -5, a split or a double that you win catches you up very quickly, even if it's just a 1-unit bet. Obviously, at any point, we also have the blackjack wager, which pays you off, or a blackjack hand, which pays you off at 3-2, and also has that come from behind factor. At -6, in TRG2 or TRG4, a comeback is not impossible. It happens often, but it is much harder to do at baccarat or craps, where at most you are going to win 1 unit per hand, than it is to do at blackjack, where in advantageous situations you can win 2 units, 3 units, 4 units on one hand and quickly catch back up. And randomly, any hand can be a blackjack and you get paid 3-2. I gotta tell you, there is very few gambling things better than making a TRG4 1-unit bet losing, making a TRG4 second bet of 2 units, and catching a blackjack. Your play stack is completely rebuilt, and you've added 2 units to your win stack. It's wonderful. Those random things and those split and double opportunities, those chances to put more money in the game at advantage, don't happen in the other low house advantage wagers. You simply have to make your way back 1 wager at a time, or add to your win stack 1 unit at a time. And for that reason, I see blackjack as a superior choice, despite the fact that there is some learning curve. A learning curve that can be alleviated by having the right materials with you that you're allowed to bring into the casino and use. And yes, I will concede. Some of you have found this, and it is very true. I will concede that if you are playing TRG4, and you make that 1-unit wager and lose, and then you make the 2-unit wager, and you split or double and don't win, you got a mess. Because you've lost 5 units in 2 hands, your play stack is -5. You've got some work to do. And if things don't go well fairly quickly, it's going to be a quick session. And you're either going to be going up in the meta martingale, up with a mini martingale, or taking a break, walking away, looking at the Buddha statue, looking at the ocean, doing one of those things. Is certainly true. And it hurts when it happens. It doesn't feel good. And you can look at it and you can say, I'm going to play TRG2 instead. Perfectly valid. I know some of you have done that, and I get that, and I'm not faulting you for it. I made a lot of money playing TRG2, always be grinding, for a long time before I evolved it to TRG4, win more, keep more. I get that, and nothing wrong with that. And all my arguments still stand on all the rest of it. Doubles and splits and blackjacks, if you're using TRG2, always be grinding, are a way to catch up when you're behind. And I concede that with TRG4, if it happens at 2 units and you don't win, then it's painful and then it makes a problem. And that does happen. But it doesn't happen very often because using basic strategy, we're doing it in situations where it is to our advantage to do it, where the math says we are going to win more over time by making that play. The odds are literally in our favor, to quote a famous movie. I think that justifies the added risk. It does for me. If not, you have an option. Play TRG2, not TRG4, and the problem goes away. The fact remains that doubles, splits, and blackjacks make blackjack superior to Bach, even if the house advantage was the same, but the house advantage is not. The house advantage is lower for blackjack. If you are a beginner, if you are just learning, if you are coming to casino combat from a craps point of view, if you're coming from a roulette point of view, if blackjack has always seemed too tough, if you've always felt like you didn't want to deal with the unfun, let's just be kind, the unfun people at the blackjack table that want to criticize and complain, and you just didn't want to deal with that, I encourage you to rethink it. Find out the rules for where you're going to play. Print out a strategy chart from wizardofodds.com that matches those rules. Learn some of the basics. Take the strategy chart with you. Ask the other players at the table if you're not sure. And make the lowest possible house advantage wager that also coincidentally has a great set of rules that allow you to catch up when you're behind, or quickly win and get out when things go your way at the right time. Okay, next up, we are going to do a results segment and wrap up the month. So we're just going to take a quick look through things and wrap up the month of April 2024 and move on to the virtual VIP lounge and enjoy some sips and stories. Rolling back through things, rolling back through the last couple weeks of play. This is all local play. That's why this is results, not travel. Stuck close to home, getting ready to get on a boat. In fact, played around with names and dates a little bit here, if we're going to be honest. Use that magic power of the 10 ounces of sterling silver that is the Casino Combat Ring. I had a choice to make. We're going to get on the boat. We're going to be on the boat for a couple days. The month is going to end, and we're going to be on the boat for 5 more days. Do I cut the month off a little short? Do I cut the month off when I should in the middle of the cruise? Do I make the cruise part of 2 episodes? That just all seemed messy. I want to spend next episode telling you about the cruise. That's where I want to focus the travel segment. That's where I want to focus the results. That's where I want to focus the episode to an extent that is living a casino lifestyle. So I made the decision, used the power of the ring, changed names and dates, and just chopped things off a little bit early, and I'll preview things a little bit here. The irony is, after day 1 on the cruise, which was the next to the last day of the month, I'm thinking, oh, I screwed up. Boy, this was a great night. Boy, we were on a hot run. Boy, that'd make last month look a lot better. And the next night was our one kind of less than profitable night on the cruise, and it kind of took back a big chunk of those wins, and I'm thinking, well, now it doesn't really matter. The month wouldn't have changed that month either way, so treat that as a preview. Looking through the rest of this, not a lot of things jump out at me. Let me look through here just one more time real quick, see if there's anything that jumps out in the session notes that I really want to look at. Good day ruined. Early in this 2 weeks, had a good day ruined by 2 trips to the craps tables, neither of which went particularly well. Let's see here, anything else? Yeah, big loss, big blackjack loss, about 3 days pay of blackjack loss the next day. And the notes are interesting because it says up on the first hand to be +1 unit. So that's that mythical, it's easier to win 1 than it is to win infinity. and then the rest of the time playing to stay in, with the follow-up note that split eights was not my friend today. Now, splitting eights is the right answer, but you are going to see, if you're a blackjack player, days where doing the right thing just doesn't get the result that it's going to get more often than not. Anything can happen in the short term. Absolutely anything can happen in the short term. And you're never going to know it. You just have to play through it. But in this case, just fought and fought and fought. And I want to highlight that both from the even splitting eights can go against you to the please never think, and I don't think most of you do, but please never think that I'm telling you that I win every day. Certainly not every table. There are times when I sit down and things do go really, really badly. The other thing I'm going to note here as I roll through is I have a lot of, we'll see what the final numbers are. I have a lot of negative slot play here. And the devil has not been good to me. And yeah, I need to, let me highlight that. Because I've got a note here on a slot play loss using TRG slot strategy El Numero Dos, which you can find in my ebook, my free ebook, 100% free ebook, Casino Combat Slot Tactics. Go to casinocombat.com, spell combat with a K. Go to the Fred section. You'll be able to download it there. We are not even going to charge you an email address. Just help yourself. Take a read. It's a good strategy for us. It wins more months than it doesn't as a set. The things in the tools in the book win as a set, often not as individual things. And I got a lot of negatives here, and I've talked up Devil's Lock a lot. I like that machine a lot. I've had a lot of good luck with it. I think over the first 30 times I played it, I was winning at a 75% rate, which is atypical, and it's been letting me down. So I do have a little note here that Devil's Lock let me down twice. 2 times in a row. And so if I'm going to tell you good things, I also want to tell you the bad things. I want to be upfront about this. That looks about it. I don't see anything else here that really jumps out at me. And certainly as we went into the last few days of this time period, as we wrapped up the month, I was taking smaller wins perhaps than I usually would. I'm trying to protect that bankroll as we got ready to get on the boat for a long week of gambling and some craps playing and meeting up with some friends and making new friends. So let's get into the actual results for the month. And let me remind you, as always, not bragging, not boasting, not truck until it falls in the ocean, none of that stuff going on here. I'm just trying to be a guy sharing his real results with you so that you have a sense of how this goes for me. And to also show you, honestly, that while I have some fabulous months, I have some less than fabulous months, I have some negative months, and hopefully the core concepts hold true. And even if I have a slightly negative month, I make it up with comps and gifts, because that's also a part of doing casino combat and living this wonderful casino lifestyle. The other thing, if you are not familiar, we are trying to level the playing field here. I want the folks that have cost of living A and folks that have cost of living B to have a fair comparison. You all know what you make in a day for where you live. That's the day's pay number. I got mine, you've got yours. For an investment banker, it's one thing. For a pizza delivery person, it's another. And then it depends on where you're delivering the pizza. Because if you're delivering them in California, you're doing really well compared to the person in Iowa delivering the pizzas. So we want to take all of that out. Whatever your number is, you can compare it to mine because I divide all of my results. Everything I spend, everything I win, everything I lose, I divide it by my day's pay number, which gets us down to the $1 a day scale. And that's how we wrap things up. That's how we know we can compare, regardless of what your cost of living is, regardless of what your expectations in your life are. You know in your life what it would mean to have an extra 7 days pay at the end of the month. And you know what it would be like in your life if you were minus 7 days pay at the end of the month. So we do all the things in the $1 a day scale. Whatever your earning scale is, whatever you want to compare to, whatever you earn in a day and want to see where this would fit, if I tell you $1.12, just multiply your day's pay number by 1.12, that'll get you there. And we'll all be on an even playing field and we'll all be on the same page. So here we go. Profit or loss from tables. A profit of $3.39 on the $1 a day scale. And what did that come out to be? 55 blackjack tables played, 37 winning tables, 18 losing tables, $2.85 actually won a little more than that in total because we had 19 craps tables played, 12 winning, 7 losing, minus 28 cents on the $1 a day scale playing craps. So solid. Blackjack is obviously my game. Craps, not so much. I continue to work on it. I continue to try to learn. I continue to enjoy the process of learning, but gave a little back there. With regards to slot machines, ay caramba Lucy, minus $4.06 on the $1 a day scale playing slots. Slot machines played with cash, 23. Slot machines played. Winning slot machines played, 6. Losing slot machines played with cash, 17. Ouch. Just ouch. This is informative, and this is one of the reasons I personally do this. I do it for you all to be accountable. I do it for you all to be transparent, but I do it for myself to review and adjust my game from month to month, from time period to time period, to step back at the end of the month and say what really happened. And what clearly really happened here is, just looking at it off the top, particularly because there wasn't a lot of travel, I played too many slot machines and had too many losing slot machines, and that's problematic because you can see here, minus $4.06 slots plus $3.39 tables. You can kind of see where I think we're going to go here. Free slot play, 60 cents on a $1 a day scale in free slot play, and did great. $1.27 won. So I won more than twice as much with free slot play as they gave me free slot play. Usually that number's the other way around. But for the first time, and I went back and looked, for the first time in about 10 months, I didn't win more from free slot play than I lost playing with cash. And that makes this a losing slot month. One of the few times this year that has happened. Not a good outcome here. Not a good outcome at all. We end up with a profit or loss from all the gambling done of $59.60. Well, let's round up. Let's call it 60 cents. So we do have a cash profit from gambling. And we had $2.09 in expenses. So our expenses exceeded our wins, not the way we would like it to be. Clearly, if I could go back in a magic DeLorean, I guess it wasn't magic, I guess Doc built it, but if I could go back in a DeLorean, I would tell myself, knock off the slot play with cash, dial it way back, you're doing way too much. Lesson learned, I suspect. $2, as I said, and 9 cents in expenses. Profit and loss after expenses, minus, took a loss after expenses are counted in, minus $1.50. So when we wash all the cash, won money playing, have a profit from gambling, manage to gamble despite significant slot losses, and play to a win, and spent enough money that we spent more than we won, and that's unfortunate. We have a loss after expenses. We will not be paying taxes on any money this month when the time comes. Let's take a look. Comps, $4.82. Match bets, 0. Free bets, $2.33 in free bets, 58 cents in gifts. Did well on the gifts, did really well on the comps. How does it all shake out? Where do we all end up? We take all the money in, all the money spent, all the money won, all the money lost, all of the value received into our lives, the money we got to gamble, the gifts we received, the comps we received. We take it all and we roll it into that big ball that is Casino Combat. And what do we see? We have a wonderful Casino Combat winning month. $7.27 in value into our lives, little over a week, calendar week, almost a week and a half's pay in value into our lives from gambling. Not ideal, not perfect, but that is the part of the core concepts. When you have a losing month in cash, which we did not, we had a losing month on the spend side. We won money, just not enough to cover our expenses. But when you come out negative, make it up with comps and gifts and profits from the month previous and the month that follows. All good stuff. Another Casino Combat win in the books. Happy about that. The next thing we're going to do is adjourn to the virtual VIP lounge for some sips and some stories.
A little bit of the bubbly.
Welcome to the most must-listen to segment in casino lifestyle podcasting, the virtual VIP lounge. Our lounge is open, and we have the best virtual everything virtually all the time. Best virtual food and drinks served in any virtual VIP lounge anywhere on the interwebs, guaranteed or your money back. As always, if you can, press pause, pour yourself something to enjoy with me, fix a plate. Today's an interesting day. It's an interesting day to be recording. It's an interesting day to be sitting here in the glorious Casino Combat Studios in parts unknown. And so I am pouring out some Crown Royal and pouring a little bit for myself as well. Here we go. This is an interesting story. You may recall last episode, I was telling you that Mrs. TRG and I took a little date night, went over to an MGM property about 2.5 hours west and north of our home as part of a strangely working logistics for a family event. And I also told you that that casino was unique and that table limits tend to go up really, really quickly, but you get permanently grandfathered in at the table limit that you're sitting at when the table limit goes up. And Mrs. TRG and I had locked down the last couple of seats at a $25 table before the limits went up. And we were sitting with some people that we didn't particularly enjoy. This is obviously the story about the story to get to the story. Gabriel has a term he likes to use. Gabriel, the angel messenger of Casino Combat. One of my longtime friends and advisors. And he has a term for certain gamblers. He calls them chirpers. And more at craps usually than some other games, but they're people that are literally just talking to hear themselves talk. They are talking it loudly and annoyingly and not necessarily to the people around them. It's just noise. It's just chirping. It bugs him more than it normally bugs me. Normally I can tune it out. Well, at this particular table, we have a team of chirpers. A team of chirpers that are a group of older women, and most of their chirping is done in a language other than English. I think it was Greek. Not enough of an expert on the Greek language to be sure, but I think it was Greek, and they're obviously regulars, and they appear to be able to move their grandfathering around. They were able to assign it to other people in their group, apparently on the rule that if the chips didn't change, so if person A is playing with a pile of chips, and person B is a friend of theirs and sits down and just plays the same chips, the grandfathering was somehow in the chips, even though the chips were often lost. And they were constantly having very loud conversations amongst themselves, both the people in the game and the people not in the game, in this other language. On and on and on. It went on all night under many circumstances. If we had been in Vegas, if we had been in Atlantic City, if we had been in a place where all the table limits were $25 or less, or most of them, we'd have moved. We would not have put up with the chirping in a language other than English. It was constant and ongoing. And the other thing that was constant and ongoing about these ladies is that there were two side bets. There are two different bets called Trilux on this table in addition to the main blackjack bet. And that is kind of where we're going to get to the point of this story, where we're going to get to the teaching moment of this story, a moment where teaching occurred for the chirpers, and I think can occur for all of us as well. You see, these ladies were grandfathered into the table at $15 a hand, and the rules of the casino allow that total of $15 to occur on any of the wagers. So you could, if you wished, bet $5 on the low house advantage wager of blackjack and $10 on the high house advantage wagers on either or both of the Triluxes and have a total of 15. Now, the reason casinos do this is because uninformed players, I was almost going to say ignorant there, maybe ignorant's also an acceptable term. Stupid wouldn't be the right word. Stupid would be derogatory. But the chirpers are constantly making these Trilux bets, which is a high house advantage bet, which is why the bet is there. It's to raise the output of the table for the house, raise the win of the table for the house above that of a basic blackjack table. So they're encouraging house profits by encouraging higher house advantage wins. And if you know that, as you do if you've listened to this podcast, as you do if you've listened to me for any period of time, you're not making those bets, right? You have the knowledge, the advantage from listening to this podcast to know not to make those bets. You understand the math of the wagers and you understand house advantage. So all night, these women are doing a couple of things. They're looking like they're almost out of money. They're making these Trilux bets constantly, losing, and then pulling out another $20 or $40, enough for just another couple of hands. And we would think, good, they're finally leaving, they're finally done, they're out of money, and then they'd lose that and pull out another 20 or 40. And they're constantly doing that, and they're constantly yakking, and they're constantly giving me a hard time because I'm getting hands that would win the Trilux bet, and I'm not betting on the Trilux. And so, I'm getting these no-no-nos, and I'm getting these big sighs and eye rolls, and I'm getting all this stuff, and I try to diffuse it. It's my standard line, it's my standard gimmick. When anytime this comes up at a table, I just say, oh, I have a secret weapon. I have a special skill. I always win that bet as long as I don't make it. And usually people nod and smile and go, yeah, that's the way it works. And it's done. But with these ladies, that wasn't it. So all night, several hours, over and over and over, being chastised for not making this bet, watching them lose the side bets themselves, watching them chatter back and forth, listening to them chatter back and forth amongst themselves. And once again, I have what would be a great hand, a straight flush, something of that nature, something that would have paid a lot. And the lady starts giving me a hard time, and I finally just said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to make that bet. It's a dumb bet. I know the math. I'm not making the bet. And she looks at me and she says in broken English, basically, no one knows the math. And I said, excuse me? I'm not sure if I followed you. And she says, slower, no one knows the math. And I said, well, of course someone knows the math. It's on Wizard of Odds. You can just go look it up. It's a horrible bet. Anybody that pays attention knows this. And obviously, I'm a bit agitated now because I don't appreciate having my game criticized by someone who I don't respect. Happy to take criticism from someone whose skills I do respect. Happy to sit under anybody's learning tree. But this woman had no learning tree for me to sit under, and she'd been annoying me for hours, and yeah, I'd had a couple adult beverages. She says, say that again? Or say again. Yeah, say again. And I said, of course I know the math. I go to wizardofodds.com, I look it up, I decide what bets to make. And now she pauses the game, she takes her money out of the circle, and she and a couple of other chirpers start chirping. Then they let us play the hand. I think it's over. This older woman comes over. The game pauses once again. Money's pulled back by the other players. They look at this older woman, and then they look at me and say, tell her. And I said, I'm sorry, what am I supposed to tell you? And now her English is much better. And she says, tell me about the web thing. And I said, oh, I know the math of the Trilux bet because I looked it up on wizardofodds.com. I said, like Wizard of Oz, but Wizard of Odds. And she pulls out a piece of paper and she says, would you please say that again? And I say, sure. And she writes it down. And she says, you know the numbers for this game? And I said, sure, I know the numbers for this game. You can just go there and look them up. And she says, oh, okay, thank you. And the game continues, and that's really where the story ends. But I thought it was illustrative that these women had sat there and bet $5, $10, $20 a hand on the side bet part of blackjack, on the losing part of blackjack. Huge house advantage on these wagers. And they keep running through their money incredibly quickly, right? If you pull out $40 and you're betting it just on blackjack and a low house advantage, you have plenty of opportunity. You haven't bought in with as much as you should, but you've got several bets. You've got a chance to make something happen. You've got a chance at least to get things going. they're making these huge side bets because they have big payouts, but the big payouts don't come very often. And so that $40 is gone just like that. And then they're pulling it out again, and they believe that the math is unknown and unknowable, and no one knows the math of the wager. I mean, what an incredible place of ignorance to be playing from. And they were stunned and a little argumentative when I said, of course we know the math. And then eventually they decided to call in someone who, I think on the basis that perhaps there was a language barrier and I wasn't saying what I was actually saying, whatever reason, they wanted to clarify with someone with a better command of the language, and that person took notes. So hopefully they do learn the math of the game. And at least then, here's the thing. I do think I'm going to go sideways here. T-Rex, chop this out if you don't think it makes sense. And so here's the thing. All side bets are almost inherently bad bets unless you're counting. If you're counting the sevens in a blazing 7 blackjack table where the right sevens can pay you thousands of dollars, and you're counting and then making the bets at the end of the shoe on the assumption that you know how many sevens are left, fine. There's some good advantage play to be done at Queen of Hearts tables. If you know the number of queens remaining and it's a large number of queens, there's some rationale to that. But in general, side bets are bad bets. And I try to avoid them because I like to make bets with the smallest possible house advantage. That's one of the core concepts. But I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong. For instance, there is a bet called all tall small on a craps table. And if you know you're with a group of people that tend to throw a lot of numbers before big red, and you're going to bet hundreds and hundreds of dollars, I'm not sure there's anything inherently wrong with putting $3. You're going to bet hundreds of dollars on this shooter, and you're going to put $3, $1 on the all, $1 on the tall, and $1 on the small. Likewise, on some craps tables, there's a fire bet, and you could make it for as little as $2. It's not a very good wager. But if, once again, you're going to play all day, the Craftsman system, at a table with fire, and that you're going to do that at a $50 unit size, so every shooter you're going to bet $200, I don't know that throwing $2 on the fire bet just in case is necessarily horrible. But making multiple Trilux bets on a blackjack table without knowing the math that are equal to or greater than your main blackjack bet, that is not smart gambling, that is not wise gambling, and that is what the chirpers were doing. They were doing it from ignorance, and that is why casinos get built. That old adage, right? Well, they don't build casinos on the backs of winners. They don't. They build them on the backs of chirpers that don't even know the math, don't believe the math is knowable, that are chasing some great side bet hand at the expense of their blackjack hand. And if you listen to podcasts like this one, if you are a knowledgeable gambler, if you go to Wizard of Odds and learn the math, if you understand what you're doing and go in with a plan and execute your plan, that separates you from the rest of the group. That separates you from the chirpers. And the chirpers build the casino. You enjoy the casino and the casino lifestyle. And a small percentage of their loss goes home with you if you can tolerate them, because you know the math and you're a smart and wise gambler. And that is what we're trying to build here. And this was an excellent example of something I take for granted, right? I know the math. I just take it for granted. They thought it was unknowable. And that's why I and people like me have opportunities that perhaps others don't have. And hopefully this podcast has allowed you, or will allow you, to become one of those people, to separate yourself from the chirpers. Please tip your waitresses, tip your bartenders, tip your dealers. If you have a host, tip your host. Don't tip away your wins. I have spoken. Everything you heard here is true from a certain point of view. In 10 years, we may find out I was wrong about all of this. It's time for leaving, and I hope you understand I was born a rambling man. Love it, hate it, it don't matter. Please share with your family and friends. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening. The best part of the podcast is next, the Casino Combat Blues.
Shaq here, spinning fast-acting pain relief with Icy Hot. Ice works fast, heat makes it last. Icy Hot, you're so back.
Your earbud fell in a coffee cup. You need a taco pick-me-up.
When modern life gets rough, grab the timeless taste you love. Paso, the old El Paso.
For Atlantic City Empress, Casino Combat's ace.
There are profits in the casino tonight, I can feel it in my bones. I had a premonition, you should probably play alone. I know the house has an advantage, but that's part of the thrill. If we follow the core concepts, the chips begin to spill. So baby, here's your player's card, put your bankroll in your hand. Use just some of that money now, do it just the way we planned. Just follow the core concepts, and you could win several grand. Well, it's good if it goes down like that, don't have to play to lose. It's gambling as a business, the Casino Combat Blues. Casino Combat Blues. The dealers and the pit bosses, the security and the law, the winning and the losing and the tricks nobody saw. No matter if it's blackjack, roulette or craps, you've gotta carry defense, cause you always carry cash. There's lots of shady characters, lots of dirty deals. Everybody has an alias, cause that's more fun we feel. It's the lure of winning money, it's got a very strong appeal. Perhaps you'd understand it better standing in my shoes. It's the ultimate enticement, it's the Casino Combat Blues. Casino Combat Blues. Whoa. You don't see it in the headlines, you don't hear it every day. No one's trying to stop us, and we don't need to go away. We can gamble in Atlantic City, we can gamble in LA, we can gamble out in Vegas. I mean, we're here to stay. Gambling's propping up the budgets of folks like me and you. You ask any casino manager, he'll say there's nothing he can do. From the pockets of the casino, right down to me and you. Me and you. It's a winning proposition and one you shouldn't refuse. It's just the core concepts, the Casino Combat Blues. Casino Combat Blues.
If we knew more about our sleep, what would we do differently? Would we go to bed at a consistent time or take steps to reduce interruptions to our sleep? With the all-new Sleep Score, Apple Watch measures your bedtime consistency, interruptions, and sleep duration. Then, every morning it combines these factors into an easy-to-understand score from 1 to 100. So you'll know how to take the quality of your sleep from good to excellent. Introducing the new Sleep Score on Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.